know there's a lot to talk about today. Obviously, hi Trish, hi Jan. Nice to see you come in. Appreciate that. So lots to talk about today. Obviously, what's happening in Venezuela is probably the biggest news at the moment, and it's absolutely like, hi Ellen, good to see you, Ellen. Hi T, good to see you again, T. Very good to see you. Um, there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on in Venezuela. I have to say that what is going on in Venezuela um, is, in a way, very confusing to some degree. And what I mean by that is, with when it was George W. Bush, like going back to the George W. Bush days and the war in Iraq and all that sort of stuff, we kind of understood what was behind it all, right? We understood that. Hi, I missed you, Joe. Oh, I missed you too, T. I really did. I missed being on Substack Live, and I missed all my American and European and other Australian friends on here. It's been too long. Uh, hey Joe, that's the song, isn't it? Yeah. Hey Joe, where are you going with that gun in your hand? I think is actually a song. Never had a gun, being from Australia myself. But if I was in America, I'd probably have a gun, you know. Anyway, but yeah, so talking about Venezuela, what's going on over there, I was thinking about, like, a lot of people are trying to speculate why, hi Peter, hi Ruth, why a lot of people, thanks for the love hearts, well, a lot of people trying to work out why did Trump and hi, Paolo. Good to see you, Paolo. Why did Trump and that actually bomb Venezuela? Now, a lot of people straight away will go, "Oh, it's the Epstein files," or they're trying to cover up for the Epstein files, or they might say, it's oil or that sort of stuff. It could be that Marco Rubio, who's obviously, I think, a big pusher of this thing, what's going on. I think Marco Rubio is not talked about enough when it comes to what's going on in that area. If you look at a lot of the press conferences that have been going on, Trump will often just go, "Oh, I don't know about this." We'll bring Marco in. And then Marco goes and does all the talking. On the weekend, right? Hey, Car, good to see you. Happy New Year, Car. Good to see you again. If you look on the weekend, it was Marco Rubio who was going onto all the all news programs, and he was talking about what's going on here. So going back to the what happened with George W. Bush, the war in Iraq, and all that sort of stuff, is Happy New Year, Car. Is that what's different here is that everyone knew what George W. Bush was doing before George W. Bush in his administration. Right. Hi, Donna. Happy New Year, Donna. So good to see you again. Hope you had a good New Year. Um, the Thank you for the love hearts. And the thing about that is, George W. Bush was joined by people like Paul Wolfowitz and Dick Cheney, and these people had written stories and articles and documents and all this stuff about how they wanted to remap the whole of the Middle East, right? So they wanted to do it. There was no secret about why George W. Bush invaded Iraq. It was all put on paper. The people surrounding them were all doing it. There was think tanks that were backing them up. I know a lot of people are going to go, "I know why he's doing it." But actually, it's more complicated, this one, and it's not as easy to go down to exactly why he's doing it. I want to go take a little bit of a deep dive into it, because it's very easy to say it's Epstein files he's trying to distract from, was this and that, or it's oil. But a lot of it is more complicated than people realize. I'll give it to you. First of all, in my opinion, and I'm just guessing here because I don't think anybody knows, Donald Trump is not an ideologue, right? He's not George W. Bush, right? He's not Paul Wolfowitz. He's not Dick Cheney. He doesn't think like that. He could be George W. Bush tomorrow and be a completely different type of person the next day. He doesn't have an ideological bent, right? So it's harder to gauge why someone like George W. Bush would do this. Now, and secondly, one of the big things that a lot of people talk about, hi, Mary. Good to see you. G'day, another Australian. A lot of the people that talk about this, hi, Happy New Year, Nicole. Good to see you. A lot of the things that people have been talking about is oil. Now, I did a bit of a deep dive into the oil thing. And sure, Venezuela does have a lot of oil. and it's mostly untapped oil that hasn't actually. Hi, Happy New Year, Barry. Venezuela's oil is mostly untapped, right? It's all in bed with Putin. Now, the reason I say this, the reason I say that it's a bit more complicated. This is that the oil that mostly is in Venezuela is underground, and it's in an area that is very hard to dig up. And when I say it's very hard, I mean it's extremely hard. And a lot of oil companies have actually been invited in by Venezuela to dig it up, and they've said no because the amount of money it would cost them to dig that oil out, they wouldn't make a profit. Right? They wouldn't actually make a profit. So remember, Chevron is in Venezuela. They're already in there getting 25% of the oil. And the more oil you have, so you imagine oil. All the oil in the world gets put into a pool and then it's shared around the world. The more oil that goes into it, the less you pay for oil. So a lot of the American oil companies, they don't want Venezuela to dig up all this oil, because guess what happens? The more oil that comes from Venezuela, the lower the gas prices will become and the less profits the American oil businesses will make. So it's a lot more complicated than it's just oil, because the type of oil they have in Venezuela is very, very hard to dig up. So in my opinion, I think what's happening here, and I don't think anybody knows, and the reason I think nobody knows 100% for sure is because, as I said before, Trump is not an ideologue, right? He's not someone who's reading through think tanks and, we need to restructure this and restructure this. He doesn't think like that, right? Now, who does think like that? Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is an old school establishment Republican who's more intelligent, who does think about things more, is kind of in the old school of Jeb Bush, George W. Bush, all these type of people. And all the people, if you look, as I said to you before, when anybody gets in front of the camera to talk about what is going on currently, it's Marco Rubio. Trump pushes Marco Rubio to the front because Trump has no idea. They kept asking Trump questions about oil, about this, about that. And literally, Trump would look at the camera like he has no idea. And he wouldn't. He has no idea. So he gets Marco Rubio to talk about it. Or he says, the people behind me are the ones doing it. This is what I think has happened. And it could be wrong, because I don't think anybody really knows. Because again, when you have someone who's not an ideologue like Trump, it's much harder to work out what's going on. And it could be 300 different pieces. What I think has happened is that everybody knows that Marco Rubio, who's from Florida, right? He comes from those Republicans who hate Cuba. And I mean, they really, really hate Cuba. His parents hated Cuba. His family hate Cuba. He lives from Florida. He's surrounded by people who hate Cuba. A lot of people in that community feel that if you get rid of Venezuela, eventually Cuba will go, because Venezuela supports Cuba. So they're looking at it like basically it's, if you get rid of one, the next one will drop, right? So I think what's happening here is that Marco Rubio has convinced, and his parents are from Cuba, that's right. And Marco Rubio and a lot of the Republicans from Florida, remember, Trump lives in Florida, in Mar-a-Lago. They have a lot of sway with Trump. They've convinced him, because what is happening now is something that Marco Rubio has already talked about before Trump became president. They've already discussed getting rid of Venezuela to help get rid of Cuba, because in their eyes, Venezuela supplies oil to Cuba. They supply hospitals. They supply doctors, right? So this is get rid of Venezuela. It's like a pyramid thing. One goes, the other one goes, bang, 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 bang. That's what I believe is happening here. And that's why every time Trump is asked about it, he looks like a deer stuck in a headlight, because he has no idea about it. Now, this is where I think how they got Trump. They convinced Trump to go ahead with this, because they told Trump there's a lot of oil in Venezuela, which is true. They told Trump there's a lot of industry in Venezuela. There's a lot of mining in Venezuela, which is true. And that's how they convinced Trump to go along with this. Trump doesn't care about dictators. He is a dictator. Trump doesn't care about authoritarians. He loves Putin. None of that makes any sense. The other thing they try to make up the excuse about is that Maduro, right? They don't. The Trump administration don't like Maduro because at the last election he refused to concede the election. Right? Does that remind you of anyone? We're supposed to believe that the Trump administration is upset at Maduro because he refused to concede an election. Donald Trump refused to concede an election in 2020, and they don't care about that. Donald Trump set up 7 fake slate of electors to overthrow the government. Donald Trump asked governors for more votes. Donald Trump incited January 26th, wanted Mike Pence to basically not actually go through with the votes. He did all of that, right? And basically, we're now supposed to believe that the United States is so upset about Maduro not conceding an election and is an illegitimate president that that's the reason why I bombed. No, I don't think we're going to believe it. It's definitely not about drugs. Everybody knows it's not about drugs. And I have to say this. It goes further back than to Trump's first term. Amy, I 100% agree with you. There are people within the Trump administration who are still old school establishments like Mark Rubio and a whole bunch of other people in that industry who always wanted to get rid of Venezuela and Cuba. And I believe this is the number one thing. I believe this is the number one reason. This is a Marco Rubio job. And if you don't believe me, it's not Trump going around talking to anyone. It's Marco Rubio because he understands Venezuela and he understands. Marco Rubio is the biggest weasel on the planet. He started with, in 2016, he said basically, nobody should believe a con artist like Trump. Anybody who believes a con, he completely was absolutely smashed by Donald Trump in the 2016 election, called him little Marco Rubio, called him a neocon, all this sort of stuff. And now he's become one of Trump's closest advisors. And because he's so close to Trump, he's basically convinced Trump that we can grab their oil. But I don't think Marco Rubio cares about the oil that much. I don't think the Florida people care about the oil that much because it doesn't make sense. Yes, there is oil in that country, but the oil is so expensive to extract out of there, it's probably not going to be profitable. I believe he's awful called him Little Rubio. Yeah, sickening. Yeah. So again, I don't think this is, we just want their oil. I don't think this is about the Epstein files. I really do think this is a Marco Rubio, Florida thing that's going on here. They want this to go, but Trump's tried to get Venezuela to get in the oil price fix in the first term, and Maduro refused. Yeah, but you have to understand this is more complicated in the sense of the oil in Venezuela is to the infrastructure is not there. Like the idea, like Maduro would love to have more oil come out of that country. Like Venezuela is basically, remember, Chevron is an American company who has been in Venezuela for years, and Maduro said to Chevron, if you want to dig up more oil, go for it. He actually said they could dig up more oil. Chevron said, we can't do it because it's too expensive and we won't make any money. We won't make enough money there. Remember, more oil can reduce prices. Less oil increases prices. So if you're an oil company, it's not just about Marco Rubio has won regime change in Venezuela for years. This is his yeah, exactly, Lisa. This is about regime change. They want to bring in right-wing governments. I believe also this is a little bit personal for people like Marco Rubio. I think it is personal. I think his family fled Cuba during the revolution. A lot of these people, it's a very, very personal thing for them. Remember, these people, they live in that community. Their friends are all ex-Cubans. Their friends, that's the community they live in. That's the people they talk to every day. So for Trump, Trump doesn't care about any of this stuff. Remember, years ago, before Trump became president, Barack Obama was talking about, hi, Kimmy, good to see you again, Kimmy. Happy New Year. Remember when Barack Obama was president, Barack Obama was talking about opening up trade, right? Opening up trade with Cuba. Remember that? And all the right-wingers went crazy going, why would you want to open up trade with Cuba and all that stuff? So Donald Trump, remember he wasn't president then, went on TV and he said, I agree I agree with Barack Obama opening up trade. Why wouldn't you want to do trade? They can make money, right? So again, we know for a fact there is no ideological reason for Trump. Trump agreed with Barack Obama about opening up a trade with that. And Marco Rubio and they hated Trump for that. They hated him for what he was saying about Cuba. Again, none of it makes any sense. This is not about Trump caring about Maduro being. Have you read about how the oil relates to the values of the US dollar? Not sure I understand it, but Europe is talking about selling off of bonds. I don't know enough about that, T, but I do know that. Like, I do know that I do know that a lot of the oil that is in Venezuela is just not. It's not. There's not high correlation. It's not that easy to extract, and it's the reason why a lot of companies have now, Venezuela does have the largest amount of untapped oil in the world, and I'm not saying that's not a positive thing, but you've got to extract that oil. And if you don't, right, and I don't disagree with the Rubio angle, but remember what T is saying was the sham in 2018. Yeah, I mean, I just think that Dave from California, you're here, and I basically yeah. So I do think for Donald Trump, this is not about getting rid of a dictator or getting rid of that or getting rid of this. I think for him, I think Trump has a very simplistic view when it comes to like oil or digging up stuff or things like that. He just thinks, well, more supply is better, things and stuff like that. Now, it's important to say this, that when Trump was talking about digging up oil in Venezuela weeks ago, a lot of the oil companies in America said, we're not interested in doing that, right? So even the oil companies in America don't want to dig up the oil because it's too expensive. When you it's not just about to extract oil. A lot of the people who extract this oil, they say it would take 5 to 10 years before you can even start getting the stuff out of the ground, right? And then on top of that, if oil prices are really low and then you add more oil to it, then you're making less money. Or is that the matter? Yeah. So again, it's kind of like when you look at all the oil companies, they're not dying to go to Venezuela and pull out that oil because it's not easy. It's in a very, very difficult area to pull the oil out. In America, America gets a lot of its oil from fracking, right? And a lot of the oil they get from fracking is what's called clear oil. And that's not that you need thick oil, which mostly comes from Canada at the moment, to refine that oil so you can put it into your car and all that sort of stuff, right? So I think partly why people like Trump have been convinced to get oil from Venezuela is that America doesn't produce a lot of thick oil. Mostly produces clear oil, which needs to be mixed in and refined with thick oil. And America doesn't make a lot of that. Most of that's coming from Canada. And so Venezuela does have a lot of that thick oil inside underground. But again, they've got to pull it out, and that's very expensive. So again, I just feel like I really don't know the reason for it, but I think absolutely Marco Rubio is behind this. I think the people from Florida are behind this. I think Trump is easy to manipulate, right? I think there are people within the Trump clan who are trying to get him to do it. And Marco Rubio has known Trump long enough and he's smart enough to know that you just tell Trump things that he wants to hear. Marco Rubio would know that I'm not going to say to Trump that Cuba's bad, that the Cuban president is bad or Maduro is bad. That stuff is not going to, I mean, Trump doesn't care about that. He's best friends with Putin, right? So that's not what's going to win it. So people like Marco Rubio would be smart enough to know, forget all that authoritarian stuff and all that. Just tell him we're going to dig up lots of oil. We're going to have oil come there. Now, Trump gets on TV, right? This is the craziest part. Trump gets on TV after they bomb Venezuela. And by the way, they try to make it out like there was no casualties. I believe a couple of special forces people were hurt, who knows how seriously, and about 80 to 100 people in Venezuela were killed, right, including civilians. There were dozens of civilians, possibly dozens of civilians, killed in Venezuela. So the idea that this was some sort of bloodless thing is ridiculous, right? Obviously, what happened is they had someone inside of the Maduro camp who was giving them information. It's the only way it could have happened, right? So there was someone inside the camp. So now Maduro is a very, very bad person. Trump and his people don't give a tinker damn about the American people, only about how much money. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, which was illegal, not exactly, Donna. And the thing is they they went into a country, they got Maduro, and the idea, right? This is a lot what's happening now. You're hearing a lot of this stuff on sort of the MAGA side, is that if you say you're against the United States bombing a sovereign country and extracting their leader, even if they're illegitimate. So I don't think Maduro won the last election. I think he lied. I think he lost the last election, and he is an illegitimate leader. But that's not for America to decide. America doesn't get to run into other countries and decide that sort of stuff. Could you imagine if in 2020 Trump managed to get Pence not to certify the election, right? And for some reason got other things to work his way, and he managed to overthrow the government? Could you imagine if some country then said, well, Trump is an illegitimate president, therefore we're going to extract him, pull him out, and it would never happen. I think that's true. Yes, plus used armed forces committee. Yeah, exactly. So they went in there, right? They went into a sovereign country. They used up a ridiculous lie about the drugs. And by the way, the whole narco drug thing, I'm actually noticing there's a lot of people, right wing influencers at the moment, who are saying that that's all bullshit. So they're not even pretending like they believe that. I'm here in Miami Beach visiting family. Interesting discussion here. Thanks, Richard. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you're in an area where Marco Rubio has a lot of power, and a lot of people who have a lot of power are ex-Cuban people. Harper, Marco thinks if he replaces a Trump lie, it'll become true. With Trump, we know if he's too stupid, he knows he's lying. But with Rubio, we know he knows, which makes him look even worse. 100%, Harper. 100%. I've always had this battle with how much, when it comes to Trump, how much is it stupidity and how much is just lying? And I think there's always a little bit of both with Trump, right? I think Amy, from the professors I know in Venezuela, she explained it like our last few elections, popular vote, Maduro lost, electoral college like he won. Right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've heard from a lot of countries, including my country, Australia, who say that he did lose the election. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Maduro did steal the election, to be honest with you. I don't He's a very bad person. Like, Maduro is a very bad person, right? He does kill his opposition people, he does imprison people. There are a lot of people who are happy to see him gone. Now, this is the thing. You can have these two thoughts at the same time, unless you're MAGA. In MAGA land, you can't have the same thoughts. You can't say, well, look at this. Saddam Hussein was a bad person, right? Everyone knows Saddam Hussein. No, I don't think anyone thought Saddam Hussein was a good person. When America first went into Iraq, there were people in Iraq celebrating his demise. There were people running around with American flags. They were wrapping the American flags on the American tanks, right? That's what happened in Iraq when they first went in. When America first went into Iraq, they barely fired one bullet. They went right in, right? But what then they got Saddam Hussein. He was then executed, and that's when all the bad stuff started to happen, right? Because what we're seeing is one side. Venezuela is a complicated country run by different factions, different warlords. Pull down his statue, I think. Yeah, that's right, Dave. They did pull down his statue. They pulled down his statue. But the thing about Iraq, and it has some similarities to Venezuela, is that there are interest groups within Venezuela as there were in Iraq, right? So the idea that there are people who are benefiting from Maduro being in power. As far as legal basis, there is actually a legal basis with likely would pass muster in the US, similar to Obama with Libya and Bush with part of the attorney here, at least with this limited action so far. Okay. Now, Richard, I don't. Yeah. So as far as I know, um, I yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, let's just be honest. It doesn't really matter if something's illegal in America. It doesn't really matter, right? Doesn't really matter if it's illegal or not. I don't think it does because I, you can say it's illegal. The United Nations can say it's illegal, but it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's how what it, United Nations saying something's illegal, but they can't do anything about it. So what does it matter? It's like the police saying you're not allowed to speed, and then when you speed, they don't do anything about it. What's the point? No one would listen to them. This is the thing about international law when it comes to countries like America, right? They have no power over a place. America is the biggest country on the planet, the biggest military on the planet. The United Nations needs America to exist. Without America, United Nations doesn't exist, right? So America is too big to fail. Like the banks. Remember the banks? Too big. That's America. So this whole argument about it's illegal, it doesn't, to be honest with you, I agree, but it doesn't matter. It really makes no difference, right? The only thing that could happen is they could impeach Donald Trump. But that's also not going to happen. So we need another. Yeah. So again, the argument about illegal and stuff, I get it, but it means nothing. It really does mean nothing. No, correct. No power over Russia or China. Exactly. Yeah. If United Nations can't do anything about it, a lawyer I follow said the indictment against Maduro is pretty vague. His guess was there would be insufficient evidence and it would be thrown out. Trump doesn't care about convictions. Yeah, exactly. I think now, of course, we all know that grabbing Maduro and sending him to America and then talking about being drug cartels is completely bullshit because only a few weeks ago, Trump basically pardoned the ex-president of Honduras, who was literally convicted in an American court of trafficking cocaine into America. No one, no one believes this, right? No one believes this, right? So I don't know how it's going to happen in American court. I don't know if it's going to happen in American court, but we do know it's BS. I don't know if I don't know if they're thinking like, in a sense, like they might not be able to get him on drug cartels. Trump just uses things like they get MAGA in a tizzy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think part of the reason of kidnapping Maduro is to try to send a signal to Cuba and to other people in Venezuela to say, hey, we got him, right? If we can get you next. So what signal does that send to the vice president? Richard, yes, correct. Pardon my drug keeper and another. Exactly. What signal does this send, right? America has just shown that they could pretty easily, extract the leader of a country within a very short period of time. And if you're the vice president of Venezuela right now, who is now the leader of Venezuela, what is America going to be saying to them? America's going to be saying, do you want the same thing to happen to you that happened to Maduro? And the same thing with the Colombian president. Do you want the same thing to happen to you that happened to Maduro? And with Cuba? So what they're showing is they're showing these other countries around them, including the Venezuela, that they could do that to them next. And so they're going to get So I think that was the reason, the number one reason for doing it. Joe, you're absolutely correct. It's a pure power play by Trump in the Western Hemisphere. Yeah, there's no doubt that Trump wants to have all the people in South America, basically in that area, under either under his control. And when I say under his control, it doesn't mean that they're going to be in there, like, in charge. I don't mean that. I mean, like, they want puppets. They want people like, they want people like the Argentinian president, right? They want people like that. They want everyone to be like Argentina in South America. They want all the friendliness of Argentina, and then basically they can do whatever they want, right? And I think that's what it's all about. Trump wants to turn South America into Argentina, and he wants to get rid of anybody who's left. Colombia, Brazil, Cuba, any of those countries he wants to get rid of and replace them with with right-wing libertarian type people who basically he can do whatever he wants, pillage, come in, grab the, grab oil, grab this, and all that sort of stuff, right? I think that's the end goal here. Trump is not, Trump doesn't care. Everyone knows Trump does not care at all about with how many dictators there are around. In fact, I would say this. I think Trump would love a right-wing dictator because the great thing about right-wing dictators is they would do what Trump does, but they don't have to deal with parliament or they don't have to deal with their type of Congress, right? Because if you have a right-wing um, democratic country and you don't have the balance of power in your type of parliament or Congress, you can't just decide to get things done, right? So if you have a dictator, they don't have to negotiate with their opposition parties to get legislation through. They just do it. So I think Trump would love to have right wing dictators in all of the South American countries because then they could just do whatever they want and not have to negotiate with other political parties within their country. So again, the whole thing is just completely BS. I mean, Trump gets on TV. This part was hilarious. Well, not hilarious, but it's such encapsulated. Goes on. Donna, Trump's health is very bad. Fell asleep when Rubio was giving the press conference. Yeah, Donna. Trump doesn't know what's going. Trump has no idea about South America. He has no idea about how their political systems work, and he doesn't know about any of that stuff. All Trump cares about is, can I get something out of that country to help me? Can I get, that's all he cares about. He just cares about surface level things. The details he gives to Marco Rubio. The details he gives to the other people. He's just like, we need some stuff from that country. That's how his brain works. That's as far as his brain works. Yeah, yeah. Hi, Tamara. Good to see you again. Thank you so much for coming back. So Trump goes on TV after they extract the Venezuelan president, right? And he does a press conference, and there's Marco Rubio and all the people behind him. And Trump starts sort of riffing. He's just riffing, right? Right? And he starts saying things like, we are now going to take over Venezuela. We are now going to be in control of Venezuela. We're going to decide everything they do. Bang, 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 bang. Right now, in my head, I'm thinking, oh wow, they must have toppled the regime. They must have got rid of that regime. That regime is now gone because remember, you toppling the person at the top doesn't mean you're toppling the regime. It's not regime change if the regime still exists, right? So that's kind of the whole point, right? You can't just go, oh, we got rid of the leader, but the vice president's still there. Everyone else is still in that party, but they just got rid of one guy and the regime is still going. No, that's not regime change. Regime change is where you change the whole political party, right? That means the vice president's gone. That means everyone in their party's gone. That means they either take over themselves, America, or they basically replace it with their puppet regime. Up until now, that has not happened. So Trump literally went on TV and just bold-faced lied, like he always does, and started riffing about making up stuff that they're now in charge of that country. And then Marco Rubio on the weekend goes on all these talk shows. And of course, he's asked about, well, Trump said, right? Trump said that he was going to be taking over. Trump said he's pretty much going to be taking over Venezuela and that you're going to be in charge and all that. And Marco Rubio then backtracks and tells the truth. No, that's not what we're doing. We're going to coerce Venezuela to do the right thing by embargoes on the oil tankers. They're already doing that. They were already trying to coerce Venezuela by stopping their oil from moving around. And now, basically, what Rubio's saying is, no, we're not actually going to run Venezuela. We're just going to continue to do the same thing we were doing before we got Maduro, and we're going to just do exactly the same thing afterwards. And the regime of Maduro is still in place. They still hate America. They're still saying they're not going to do what America wants them to do. What has changed? They just got rid of their leader, but the regime is, that's not regime change. I'm not an expert on regime change. I'm sure there's people who know a lot more about regime change to me. But as far as I know, regime change is where you get rid of the actual regime. And that didn't happen. Regime change did not happen. They got rid of the leader and everything else stayed the same. Donald Trump bold-faced lied again on TV about America taking over, right? It's incredible that you can, in this day and age, right? Trump's Keystone Cops. It is, Dave. It is 100% Keystone Cops. Then what was the point? I think tomorrow. I think spoiler. We can't even run our own. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the idea. He's appointing Rubio as Governor General in his head, but he forgot to tell her. That's right. Yeah, yeah. You know, the thing in my head that I love is while Trump is riffing on during the news conference about America taking over and all these lies, in the background there's Marco Rubio and all the other people, and what are they thinking in their head? Because here's the thing, I don't think Trump told him he was going to say that. I don't think Trump told little Marco Rubio that he was going to go on TV and tell him that Trump was going to take over the government and that Marco Rubio, was going to be in charge. I don't think they told little Marco Rubio that. Marco Rubio found out at the same time we found out. And that's why little Marco Rubio had to go on TV and clean up the mess. There's a big difference, right? Again, I'm not an expert on regime change. There's a big difference, right, between running a country, right, directly running a country yourself, having your own people in there running it, and an embargo on oil to coerce them to do what you want to do, which is something they were already doing before. Nothing has changed except they got rid of Maduro. Everything else is exactly the same, right? So again, the lies, the exaggerations, the riffing just off the top of his head, Trump cares about nothing. If this didn't involve real people and real lives, this would actually be a great spread. Richard, there is no, you're 100% right. And let me just say this. I've said this before, and a lot of people here have heard me say it. I'm an Australian who comments on American politics mostly. And a lot of times when I comment on American politics, people will say, mind your own business, worry about what's happening in your own country. And my answer to that is, when you're watching something as crazy and nutty as what's happening in America, you cannot look away. It doesn't matter who you are. How are we supposed to ignore what's going on? You have a president who's an ex-reality TV star, right? You have little Marco Rubio, who's basically was completely embarrassed by Donald Trump, has now become his biggest sycophant. You had Dr. Phil, the TV psychologist, who was embedded with ICE. Remember that? He was embedded with ICE, a reality TV star embedded with ICE. You have an anti-vaxxer who's in charge of health. Of course, we can't keep our eyes off this. It's like a shit show that you can't keep your eyes off. So again, I think Marco Rubio, we need people to be involved and talk about to no matter where they live. That's correct. Thanks, Kimmy. What happened in the US affects the whole world. Exactly right. Everything that happens in America affects the whole world. If you're upset about an Australian commenting, if you're an American, right? If you're an American who's part of MAGA, and it's always MAGA who gets upset about this. If you're an American who's part of MAGA and you're upset about people like me commenting about a foreign country like America, maybe you should be more upset about your country invading foreign countries. Like you're upset about random people talking on the internet, in getting themselves involved in another country's affairs, but MAGA is okay with their country invading other foreign countries. I mean, yeah. So, I mean, the nuttiness of these people is incredible, right? Don't, Joe Thomas, mind your own business. By the way, we're about to invade Greenland. So, it's just that these people are crazy. You've got people basically in the Trump administration who are now bold-faced lying about Trump, what he's doing, trying to clean up his mess after he just bullshits on TV and says crappy things. And the fact of the matter is that they did get Maduro, they got him out, but that's all they did. Nothing else changed. What's also been very interesting about this thing is the amount of MAGA influencers online and Fox News who were very upset with Joe Biden. And they would say things like, you know what? Um, the Democrats are getting too involved. I welcome intelligent commentary from Australia. Good perspective. Thanks, Richard. Appreciate that. And the thing about it is that a lot of the right wing MAGA influencers online lost their minds. They basically said, "Oh, if Biden is elected, or if Kamala Harris is elected, there's going to be new wars started everywhere." This is what they said. We need to stop Trump shames the opposition party leader by saying she's weak and unpopular. Exactly right, Dave. Exactly. He doesn't, by the way, Dave, he doesn't even want the opposition leader from Venezuela to actually be in charge. Why? Because it's not regime change, right? Think about this. Why wouldn't Trump want the opposition leader who's now in Oslo, Norway, right? Who probably was the legitimate leader? Trump could say, I'm going to bring her back in and run the country. But instead, Trump says, no, she's not the right person. She's not the right person, but the vice president is the right person. None of it makes any sense, right? He wants to keep in the same regime instead of bringing in a different part. That's not regime change. Yeah. So anyway, but that's basically what going back to MAGA media and what MAGA media is doing. Don't you also think because she's female and won the Peace Prize? I don't think it's a sex thing, Car, in this particular case. I don't think it's about the Peace Prize. I really don't. Because when she won the Peace Prize, she actually said, I want to thank Donald Trump. She was actually very complimentary to Donald Trump during the Peace Prize. I don't think it's that. I think it's the fact of the matter is that Trump they wanted Maduro and his regime to just voluntarily move aside. When that didn't happen, right? Trump, when he said, we did regime change, he was lying. There was no regime change. So when Trump was asked about the opposition leader who's in Oslo at the moment, the reason he said no about her is because there is no regime change. So if he said yes to her, then he would have to be saying, well, we're now going to put her in power. But that was never, that's not what they want to do. They don't want to put her in power because to do that, they would actually have to get rid of the whole regime. And that's not what they're going to do. So that's why he said no about her, because they're not voluntarily stepping aside. Getting rid of Maduro didn't get rid of the party, right? So again, if he said yes about this woman, then what would happen next? He would have to put her in, and he can't put her in. So that's why he said no to her. And that's why he wants to try and work with a vice president, because he knows he didn't make regime change. Why does he want to work with the vice president of Maduro instead of the opposition leader? Because he never did regime change in the first place. It was never regime change. So that's the point. That's why I think he didn't want her in place. But going back to Trump and MAGA media, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, Bruce Springsteen. Exactly. Yeah. He basically got himself a female version of Maduro, which can't be good for the DEI people of the Trump administration. They basically replaced a man with a woman who's going to do the same job, right? MAGA can't be happy with this, right? It's one thing to replace a female leader with a male leader, but now Venezuela has a female president. I think the first female president ever, which is very progressive of Donald Trump and his party. She wanted Trump's help to displace Maduro. She likely helped the mission by organizing resistance. Then he simply dismissed her. Yeah, I think he dismissed her because he knew the party wasn't going to step aside, Harper. And they can't force It's one thing to extract one person. It's another thing to extract a whole party. To extract a whole party, that wouldn't be a 30-minute mission. That would be boots on the ground for months. And they don't want to do that. So that's why it never happens. So going back to Fox News and going back to MAGA media, who were very obsessed, and I mean very obsessed with Donald Trump and Fox News being very anti-Biden, anti-Kamala Harris, saying that they were going to start the war, that, if they got in power, is that a lot of the things that they said the Biden administration were going to do, they're doing themselves, right? If you go back and read a lot of the tweets, right, read a lot of the tweets from 2024, it was all like, we can't let Kamala Harris win because she's going to start doing regime changes, or she's going to start trying to overtake. Like every accusation was a confession. And a lot of the people online now, a lot of the influencers online now who were very interventionist, isolationist, after Trump did this in Venezuela, they have become some of the biggest supporters of regime change and intervention in overseas that I've seen in my lifetime. I mean, they sound worse than George W. Bush, right? Honestly, people online now, MAGA media, are now saying, let's go after Colombia next, let's go after Cuba next, let's go to Greenland. I mean, when you're talking about invading Greenland with military action, that's a problem. That's a really, really big problem. It's one thing to want to invade Iraq, which is a very, very bad thing. It's one thing to even extract Maduro, which is a very, very bad thing. It's a bad thing to go into Libya, all these sort of stuff. I don't think it works, right? But to want to invade Greenland with military action is beyond George W. Bush style interventionism. The thing about it is that I don't think they're going to get Greenland. I want to explain why. I think the emperor has no clothes. I think we're seeing two things happening right now. Yes, we saw the Trump administration kill a lot of people on the boats. They did do that, right? We saw them bomb Venezuela and extract the president. But there is limitations to where they want to go. As much as people don't want to, there is. Trump does not want boots on the ground. Trump does not want to be seen as the president who did Iraq 2.0, right? He doesn't. Honestly, he doesn't. And so a lot of the stuff when he goes on TV and he says, we have now taken over Venezuela, a lot of this is bluster, right? It's not to say that he won't bomb those countries or he won't do economic damage. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the emperor has no clothes when it comes to boots on the ground. Trump will not want to be seen killing people in Greenland. As crazy as we think he is, he doesn't want to be seen as that. He doesn't want to be seen as someone in Venezuela, inside Venezuela, in a fight. I'm not talking about extracting one person. That's different. That's like killing that's like killing Osama bin Laden, right? You go in, you kill, you go out. That's different. I'm talking about if you want to take out the regime in Venezuela, that's a big job. That's a big job. That involves many people in Venezuela dying. That means many American soldiers dying. There's also the deadline to do. Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah, the Epstein thing. Exactly right. Yeah. Let me just have a drink of water here. Yeah. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And I think thinking about it, right? Thinking about it is Trump I don't think will go to the next level. And because of that, I think there's a lot of people looking around in South America and in Greenland who were very, very shocked when Trump said, we're going to take over Venezuela. Now, had Trump gone along with that, everything would have been on the table. It would have been insanity if he agreed he does not want boats on the ground. What worries me about Greenland is there's already US base and has no military presence. Yeah. Now, you're right, Richard, but if he was to take over Greenland, a lot of the natives there would actually fight. I guarantee you. And there will be deaths there. They would fight and they would be killed. And that's not what Trump wants to be seen as. Seen as a person who killed native people in Greenland would be considered 1,000 times worse than Iraq. Whatever you think about Trump, whatever you think about his administration, I guarantee you they don't want to be seen the people who slaughtered people from Greenland. And they don't want to be seen as the people who were involved in a protracted war in Venezuela. And again, it's one thing to pull one person out. You can't get rid of a regime without being inside that country for months. And that would involve multiple US casualties, multiple Venezuelan characters. There would be an insurgency. And you don't have to be powerful for insurgency. Once insurgencies happens, you can have a country like Afghanistan, which has almost no military thing, or years. Exactly right. Trump doesn't want that. What we're seeing now is the backtracking of, okay, he didn't actually want to, he didn't actually take over Greenland. What does that mean? It means he's willing to go here, but he's not willing to go there. And I think a lot of people, it would also require congressional approval. Yeah. Again, yeah, it would, Tamara. Again, I will say this, all this stuff about like congressional approval or it's illegal, I actually don't think any of that really matters anymore in America. Like, I think, it only matters if people are held accountable. If nobody's held accountable, it doesn't matter. As I said before, United Nations can say something's illegal, but if they don't do anything about it, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything, right? What does it mean? The United Nations says this country did something illegal. Russia did something illegal. What happened? Nothing happened. America shouldn't have invaded Iraq. What happened? Nothing happened. Nothing matters. Again, I'll give the example. If a police officer, if a government says it's illegal to speed, but police do not monitor people speeding, who cares? Even if it's illegal, you have to actually enforce it. And United Nations can't enforce what America does because America is the most powerful country on the planet. So whether it's illegal or Congress or that, I don't think anything that matters in it. In my opinion, America is the biggest, richest shithole country on the planet. Yeah, I agree, James. I agree. But I think the one thing that holds Trump back is not that it's illegal. I don't think he cares about that. I don't think it's about any of that. It's about he doesn't want to be seen as George W. Bush times two. He doesn't want to be seen boots on the ground. He doesn't want to be seen killing civilians in Greenland. And so what he does is he does these extravagant things that get a lot of attention. And he hopes that those extravagant things that get a lot of attention will scare other leaders, like, for example, the leaders in Denmark, right? Denmark or the leaders in Greenland to go, take my land. You can take it all. We don't want to fight. That's what he wants to do. Or the people in Cuba to go, you know what? I don't want the president of the United States to extract my leader or me. Therefore, you can do whatever you want, right? So the Maduro thing was not about drugs. It was not about him being a dictator. And it certainly was not about him faking an election. It was 100% about sending a signal to other people in Cuba, in Greenland, in Denmark, in Colombia, that what happened to him could happen to you, right? And it's a way of getting around because he's not going to do boots on the ground. What we're seeing, not completely, Donna, there is still in the past. Yeah. So I think, hi, Bob. Good to see you again, Bob. So again, I do think as crazy as Trump is, I think a lot of people in the last couple of days are seeing that Trump does have a lot of bluster. And when Marco Rubio goes on TV and he contradicts Trump about taking control of Venezuela, that sends a signal to people in Venezuela that he's not going to do regime change. That sends a signal to people in Colombia he's actually not serious. It was just bluster. It sends a signal to people in Greenland that he doesn't want to do this. They can see that Trump has limitations to what he's going to do. And I think this ultimately did not work in his favor, because if you say you're going to take over a country and you're going to control a country and you're going to do all this stuff and you're going to control the government, and then 24 hours later, it's all retracted, you just sound like an idiot, like a bullshit artist, and nobody takes you seriously. The problem with Trump is that he thinks everyone else is like his base. Trump's base, good. I'm glad to hear you say that. I hope you're right. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. I think Trump confuses his own base, which are worn up brains and peanut brains and basically believe anything he says, right? Who go from being peace doves to neocons as soon as, the Trump supporters were the biggest doves on the planet when Biden was in charge. Now they're the biggest fucking neocons on the planet when Trump is in charge, right? But scratch a MAGA supporter, scratch an isolationist MAGA supporter, and there is a George W. Bush neocon on steroids waiting to come out. They are the biggest neocons on the planet, right? They would make George W. They are bloodthirsty. MAGA is bloodthirsty. They want to invade Greenland. They want to invade Canada. They will do anything Trump tells them to do. These people haven't had an original thought since Trump came down those escalators in 2016. But this is the problem for Trump. He thinks his base is the leader of Colombia, right? Sing it, Joe. Sing. Thanks, Carl. Thank you, Carl. They're salivating. Exactly. They're salivating. Yeah. How can you go from saying Kamala Harris is a warmonger who's going to start wars all over the country, and that's why we need Trump to win, and then Trump bombs Iran, bombs Venezuela, takes out Maduro, you know, helps Saudi Arabia, does all this sort of stuff, all this sort of stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, Trump, yeah, but it's peace through power. That's how they get around it. It's peace through power, right? So there's always a mental gymnastics with MAGA. There's always a way around it. Oh, yeah, no. It's peace through power. Yeah. So they're going to get peace through power so they're going to invade Greenland through peace through power. Okay. So Greenland is a peaceful country. Denmark is a peaceful country, and they're going to use peace through power to invade a peaceful country. These people are morons, right? I mean, I feel bad to call these people morons, then hold a very simplistic views. Yeah. Detail. Yeah, exactly. Peace through violence. Exactly, Kimmy. Peace through violence. Exactly. And, again, I just got to say that it's very hard to take these people seriously. I think Trump, as much as he thought that what he did with Maduro was an amazing thing, I think what we're working out is that what he did actually, in my opinion, is gonna actually not work out for the best, because you have to actually follow through, right? Had Trump actually taken over Venezuela, as bad as it would have been, and it would have been bad, there would have been many deaths, that could have actually sent a message to Colombia. That could have actually sent a message to Cuba. They could have sent a message to Greenland that this person is a psychopath and will do anything. But instead, he took out one leader, ran out of the country as fast as they could because they didn't want deaths to happen. They were worried about deaths, right? And then went on TV, lied, went on national TV, lied to everyone. And then Marco Rubio told the truth. Just hold the moment. I'm just going to get a drink. So, yeah. So, Thank you. So yeah, I'm very thirsty. I'm very thirsty from all the yelling. I'm very thirsty from all the screaming that I'm doing because because it's just so crazy. This whole thing is just so crazy. Um, but anyway, so yeah, so but exactly, I agree, Joe. It's a strong facade, and I do think he's interested in oil. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a strong facade. The good news is there are limitations to what Trump will do. Okay, there are limitations to what he do. So so I think that's a positive thing, right? So as bad as Trump is, and he's really really bad, right? He's really really bad. I think this proves that you know what there could be. I have a word for that woman, and we'll get it. Testosterone pause. Yeah, I think there's a. I think we're seeing. Can we see your? Can we see your pup? Oh, my dog. Oh yeah, you can see Nibbles. That's Nibbles. Oh, yeah, I didn't even realize that Nibbles was there. She's just having a sleep. Yeah, Nibbles, yeah. Yeah, that's it. She's 10 years old, but she acts like she's, like, 3 years old. She's like so for those of you who don't know, she's, half Malchi, half Chihuahua, okay? So she can growl a little bit, because of the I think it's the Chihuahua in her. It's Mexican sort of thing like that. Yeah, she's being from South America, like Chihuahua. She's actually very upset about what's happening down there at the moment. Nibbles, that's right. That's exact Nibbles. That's the exact spelling, Tamara. Nibbles, how cute. She looked up when you left. Oh, did she? Nibbles, Nibbles. Can you hear me? Nibbles. Hello. There she. Look at her ears. She's got like those. She's got those big ears. Yes. Yeah. She's had a big morning. She went for a 10-minute walk this morning. So she's very tired from a 10-minute walk. But yeah, yeah, yeah. She's very cute. She's very cute. Love her. Yeah, yeah. And look, she's not a big fan of Donald Trump. She's not a big fan of Donald Trump. I will say the only thing she has in common with Donald Trump is she loves strong borders. She loves strong borders. That was the if she could build a wall around my home, she would do that. You know what I mean? Because she's very security focused around the home, and she doesn't like intruders or people coming into the home, even if they're being invited. So actually, I take that back. She could actually be a Donald Trump supporter because she doesn't actually like other people anywhere near her home. Actually, yeah, that's true. Actually, she's probably a massive Donald Trump supporter. I have to say, yeah, because yeah, and every single part around the perimeter around my home, she would just go around the perimeter of my home, and if anyone's even like walking past our home, she will growl at them, and then as they go away, she'll go away like that. So I could see her in ice. I could see her as in border force. I could see her like that. To be honest with you, she would be a great ice. She would actually. I'm sorry, I don't want to say it, but she's very much against outsiders. Um, she does love grandma. She's a very big fan of grandma. She loves for some reason she loves older women. I don't know. We don't know why. And she doesn't like kids. She's not a big fan of children. So that she's yeah. But that's just Nibbles, ice dog. Yeah, Joe. She's just making sure no Trump supporters come by. Okay, sorry, Tar. You're right. I know. I know. I don't know. Like, it's hard to say because she doesn't talk who she supports politically. But I will say she, yeah, I'll see it in my territory. Yeah, no, she's merely territorial. Trump is malignant. That's true. And look, exactly. She's just territorial about her home. Uh, no one will kill us. Tamara, yeah, I don't think Nine would be a big fan of my dog because she doesn't behave all the time. Look, she's stretching. She doesn't behave all the time. And for Gnome, remember Christy Gnome killed her dogs because they weren't behaving. I don't think Nibbles would last a week with Christy Gnome, to be honest with you. I think she'd be gone after 3 days because I love Nibbles, but she's not the most well behaved dog, and it's got nothing to do with her training. It's the Chihuahua in her. Chihuahua, and I'm not being discriminatory against Chihuahuas. Some of my dogs are Chihuahua. We have other people who have Chihuahuas as dogs. We have good friends who are Chihuahuas. So I'm not racist against them. I'm just saying that some chihuahuas can be aggressive. And I think what it is, because they're so small and humans are so big, they feel threatened. And when you see a really, really, yeah, Christy would be gone first. Yeah, I agree. I think Nibbles could take out Christy. To be honest, my dog has some show in him too, and some behaviour. Yeah, yeah. I think Nibbles could take out Christy. To be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise. It would be a close match. But yeah, Nibbles. Maybe Nibbles would be bite Kirsty's trigger finger off. Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Yeah. But she's a beautiful dog and she's a very love. The great thing I love about small dogs like Nibbles is bigger dogs, if you open the front door, they just run out, right? They don't want to be home. If we open the front door, she won't go anywhere. She will go backwards. She doesn't want to. So it's not like it's like, it doesn't, like with big dogs, it's kind of like you're trapping them, you're not letting them go. And they don't, and if you open the door, I know it sounds ridiculous, but if you leave the door open, they just run away. She would not run away. I could leave the door open all night and she would go nowhere near the front door. She doesn't want to be anywhere but with her family. That's the great thing about small dogs. They don't want to be anywhere else but with their family. So they might hate everyone else, but they love their own family to death. The most loving dog in the world, Nibbles. And I'll just say one more thing before I move on from Nibbles, is that we have some friends who don't like Nibbles, and they will say things like she's too aggressive or she tried to bite my son's finger off. Nothing serious. Like occasionally she has tried to bite kids' fingers. She never has actually bitten a kid's finger, but she's attempted it, and some people don't like that. So when I post a photo of Nibbles on Instagram, my Instagram photo of Nibbles, she sometimes gets a lot of hate from friends of ours. She'll go, "Oh, she's so aggressive. She looks like she's ready to bite." So she does get a lot of hate online sometimes, and she doesn't know about it, but my dog is a lot like Nibbles. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I know. You know what I say about my dog? I think my dog, Nibbles, is the most misunderstood dog in the world. Because if you just meet Nibbles for a couple of seconds, you can think, oh, she's too aggressive. But the more you get to know her, she'll then love you and whatever. So Nibbles, the most misunderstood dog in the world. Yeah. Anyway, I'll move on from Nibbles. I went on a bit long about Nibbles. Probably shouldn't talk that much about it. um, so the other thing I want to talk about is, forget Donald Trump and stuff like that, is the Somali daycare center. So a guy called Nick Shirley. I think this is a really important story because it kind of goes into MAGA media. A guy called Nick Shirley is a 23-year-old YouTuber, a MAGA YouTuber, right? And he basically did a video, went into daycare centers in Somalia, right? And he did a video which was completely misrepresenting what was going on there. Now, to preface this, yes, there's been a lot of fraud in a lot of the daycare centers. A lot of that involves some parts of Somalia and things like that. There's no doubt about that. But it makes up, nice break from the Trump joke. Yeah, yeah. But it only makes up about 1% of the Somali community. So it's only a very small amount of people. Yeah, exactly. He's an idiot. Yeah. So he goes in there. He gets like 23 million views. Which is why I'm talking about it, because it was so big. He gets reposted by JD Vance. He gets reposted by Elon Musk, right? And they say that he's this amazing journalist. Right? So he goes to these daycare centers outside of working hours. So there's no one there. And then he says, well, these aren't really daycare centers because there's no one there. But he's going in after hours. So of course they're not there. Some of the daycare centers were actually at-home daycare centers. So of course there wasn't anyone there because they were at-home daycare centers. So again, this person gets a lot of attention, stuff like that. The Somali community gets a lot of hate for things that only a tiny percentage of the people did. It's a bang like a hit of crack, more propaganda, hurry. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the reason I'm talking about it is because this is becoming a big problem in online media, where basically you get someone who can just get this massive amount of attention, get reposted by the vice president as someone like that, and then he just lies like that. And then the problem is that this particular person um, was one of the people who criticized Candace Owens. Now, everyone knows Candace Owens is a crazy person. She's a nutcase. She's making up all these stories about Israel and stuff like that. You don't have to agree with Israel, but the stuff that she's saying about Israel killing Tyler Roberts, it's all bullshit. It's all made up. And I think it's made up for clicks and subscribers, right? And so you have that particular type of people making a lot of money. Now, people like Nick Shirley, people like not Tucker Carlson, people like JD Vance and Ben Shapiro, they all criticized Candace Owens for doing that. They called her crazy. What did he say? So Tamara, he made a video, Tamara, which was about daycare centers run by people from Somalia saying that they were involved in fraud. This is to do with Tim Walz in Minnesota. It's a big story. There was all that fraud that happened in Minnesota with a lot of the COVID stuff that was going on. Right now, it's important to say that a lot of the investigations have been going on since 2022, so it's nothing new of what we're hearing about. A lot of people were already convicted. A lot of people had already been, charged. But MAGA were trying to make it out. Candace's Cocoa Puffs, yeah. They were trying to make it out like this was somehow a new story, and that the minister that Tim Walz didn't care about fraud, right? Yeah, Trump did exactly. And even though they'd already been discovered, so his video was basically to say that there's all these fraud in daycare centers, and what he's basically saying is that they're taking in money, government money, right, to say we have 30 young children here and they get subsidies from the government, but there's actually no children in the government, so they collect the money themselves. That was part of what the fraud was. And so he shows up outside of working hours and says, this center is taking money, government subsidies for childcare, but doesn't actually have kids in there. But the problem is that he was there outside of opening hours. So they would open from 2 to 10 at night. He showed up at midday. So it was all fraud. The only fraud here was him, right? But anyway, Nick, again, the big thing here, Candace Owens has this multiple series saying, yeah, Richard, this is the thing. The online MAGA media is like a version of the old National Enquirer or Jerry Springer. It's like, in my opinion, it's like soap opera, right? It's like online soap opera conspiracy theory altogether. That's what it is. And it's you know what it is? True crime. A lot of people love true crime. They love those true crime documentaries and they listen to the true crime podcast. And a lot of people love that stuff. And this is like a version of that. This is like a version of true crime, except it's conspiratorial. What Candace Owens does really well is she will create a whole series about it, right? She will and she would do a 1 hour podcast about how Emmanuel Macron's wife was born a man. And then at the end of it, she'll say, I've just received some extra information, but I can't talk about it right now. But if you tune in tomorrow, right? Do you remember those Days of Our Lives soap operas from the 90s? Remember Days of Our Lives? Or I can't remember the names of some of them. And there was always like a cliffhanger right at the end, like someone's about to die or someone gets caught cheating and it happens right at the end. And then the screen goes black and you're like, I have to find out what happened to that. That guy, is he having an affair with her? Oh my God, I have to tune in tomorrow. This is what this new online thing is. It's like daytime, it's like soap opera for conspiracy theorists, right? They will tell you a part of a story one day, but you don't get Young and the Restless Day. That's right. Yeah. You don't get to hear. They always end it on a cliffhanger. Candace will always end it on a cliffhanger. General Hospital, exactly. Yeah. And it's always like, and then she'll send out a tweet saying, oh my God, I just got some extra information about Tyler Robinson was involved with Israel. There was these Egyptian planes coming over. Now, I haven't got time to talk about this right now, guys, but I will be doing a 20-part series starting tomorrow. And I would love for you to subscribe to this 20-part series. It's an amazing series. And through that, I'm going to slowly unwrap this story that has so many angles and so many people involved. It has Israel. It has Emmanuel Macron's wife having a penis and testicles. It has Egyptian planes flying around. Why are Egyptian planes flying around? Can you believe Egyptian? That is weird. Why are planes flying around? Why does Emmanuel Macron's wife not show us photo of her genitalia? There could be only one reason why she doesn't show. She must be born a man. Anyway, so if you sign up for this 30-part series that starts over, subscribe to me, smash that like button, subscribe to this button, and you will get information. And that's how it works. That's how it works. Other people in that world are now seeing what she's doing, and they're doing the same thing. Which brings me back to Nick Shirley, the YouTube video journalist, right? Yeah, Mary Hartman, that's right. That's right. This brings me back to Nick Shirley. So some of the people called this Candace Owens stuff crazy. Who called this stuff crazy? J.D. Vance called this stuff crazy. Erica Kirk called this stuff crazy. Ben Shapiro called this stuff crazy, right? They called her out. But these same people are the ones retweeting Nick Shirley, the guy who did the video about the Somali people, right? The same person who did that video, the same people. It gets worse. It's not just about the Somali video. Just today, there's been a wild conspiracy theory going around for a couple of days, 3 or 4 days, which Donald Trump shared himself. Donald Trump shared this conspiracy. And this conspiracy is just as crazy as the Candace Owens ones. And the conspiracy is that Tim Walz was involved in Melissa Hortman's murder. Right? Donald Trump shared that conspiracy that Tim Walz was involved in Melissa Hortman's murder. And so then Nick Shirley, the investigative journalist, right? The investigative journalist who's been shared by J.D. Vance and who's been retweeted, who Ben Shapiro also likes, by the way. Ben Shapiro thinks Candace Owens is a crazy person, but he thinks Nick Shirley is a good person, was sharing a video of the conspiracy. Not only did he share his video, he then asked questions. Where was Tim Walz that day? How come Tim Walz didn't know anything about Melissa Hortman? How come Tim Walz and stuff like that? So just to recap, there are people in the MAGA movement calling Candace Owens a crazy person for talking about Candace Owens, for supporting Candace Owens for her crazy conspiracies, are now going along with a Tim Walz crazy conspiracy theory. They are all nutters. Even the people calling the other people crazy, they're all nutters. It's like going into an asylum, like a mental institution, and having one crazy person calling the other crazy person crazy. They are all crazy. They all believe in conspiracy theories. They are all grifters. They are all con artists. Most of them don't believe any of this stuff, and it's all a soap opera. Tomorrow, Nick Shirley will have more information about Tim Walz. The next day, Nick Shirley will have more information about Tim Walz. More information will unravel. He will turn it into a soap opera series, right? This is how it works. You start with one conspiracy, and then you just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. It's crazy, but they all do it, and it's all happening. And I got to say, these people need the constant excitement. Life is too wonderful. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of the people, I want to say this the right way. A lot of the people who buy into this stuff, they are probably bored in their life, right? And I've got to say, they're not all right-wing people. There are some people who like Candace Owens who don't consider themselves right-wing, and probably because they like the idea of the person who killed Charlie Kirk not to be Tyler Robinson. They liked the idea that it was Israel because that might take the pressure off left wing people. So there's an incentive for left wing people to go along with this because it takes the pressure off left wing people. So there's a little bit of that going on. There's also the fact that people love conspiracies. And it has to be left wing, right wing, people just love conspiracies. People also they love the idea of something unraveling, right? When you read a book or when you when you watch a Netflix series, it's like there's always it never ends, right? The conspiracy things with Candace Owens, the conspiracy things with Nick Shirley, it's never just one. It's not like Candace Owens says something crazy, and then the next day goes and talks about economic policies in Southeast Asia. No, she turns it into like a 1 year thing, right? And it's much easier to do content like that than it is to do honest, serious content. Because honest, serious content can be boring. It can be not as exciting, right? Is it more exciting to believe that Emmanuel Macron's wife has a penis and testicles? Or is it more exciting to find out that, I don't know, that inflation is costing, is affecting people? So it's about what's also easy to be palatable. Sensationalism has always been a better seller. The National Enquirer was the number one newspaper or the number one series in America for years. It wasn't the New York Times, it was the National Enquirer. So it's escapism for some people. They have been doing it since Bush Cheney, start a rumor, get someone else like Drake. Yeah, exactly right, James, exactly. Except now with social media, you can do it on a much higher level. With social media, it's a constant thing because that's not exciting. I don't give a shit if she's mad, true. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, to be fair, the Macrons are actually suing her and they are 100% going to win. But here's the thing. She will use that court case to make another whole series about how they lied about her, right? So she will make money. She will lose money, but then she will make money out of it because she'll turn it into a conspiracy. So again, it's like a constant thing where you have to like push it, go all the way to the end. And it's endless. To be honest with you, it's such an easy thing to do because the audience is massive for that sort of stuff. I'm thinking about doing it myself because I want to make more money. But the only problem is I don't know what conspiracy to do. But I could start a conspiracy. Lots of conspiracies. No joke. I'm joking. I wouldn't do it. Lots of conspiracies in the US about aliens. But yeah, and look, I will say, Richard, there's a difference between I'm not into. I don't believe the whole aliens have come into America, and I don't believe that stuff. But I think that's different conspiracies because that doesn't really affect people in a lot of ways. If you believe aliens have come to Earth, it doesn't really affect anybody whether you believe it or not. It's not a big thing. But when the conspiracies are about people in power, like Tim Walz is a killer, that's a big thing, right? When conspiracies are about vaccinations, that affects a lot of people. Nibbles is a Trump supporter. Oh, no, I don't think she is. That's a good start. Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, again, I think it is a very, very easy thing to do. You could just come up with a conspiracy. You could just come up with something. It's got to be palatable. You just talk about a lot. It's what gets a lot of viewers and it's what gets a lot of engagement, right? It's a very, so so the only conspiracy theories I was between JFK. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and exactly like the RFK, JFK, especially the JFK one. There's some weird things about that and all that sort of stuff. I don't know what the end result is. The moon landing thing is a ridiculous conspiracy. But again, if you believe that, on the one hand, it's not good that people believe that that's a conspiracy because it shows Nibbles is a cute dog. She is. She's very cute. I feel like Nibbles is taking over my show, and I'm not sure I'm liking this, to be honest with you. I feel like there's more attention on Nibbles than me. I feel like she's trying to overtake my Substack Live, and I feel like I could turn this into like Nibbles and I could have like a big argument, like sort of a power play to try to take over my Substack live. That could be something that could get like attention. Imagine if Nibbles and I started like an arc where we both try. I think I would lose. I think I would lose that. I mean, I can't compete. I can't, and she's not even doing anything too. Like, she's not even like walking around, and like she's like literally asleep, and she's still like everyone's still fixated. I don't blame you. I don't blame you. She's very, very cute. Yeah. We should start a conspiracy. One of the doctors claimed the moon landing was faked. I decided to find a new doctor. That's right. Yeah. Sorry, Joe. Look what I started. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, she's very cute. Um, and I don't think she's a Trump supporter. Um, Yeah, I don't think she's a Trump supporter. Yeah. So now, she woke up a minute ago. Oh, did she? Great. Yeah. Wow. She woke up. So yeah. From what we see, Nibbles is too mellow to replace you. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I could, you're cute. Me or Nibbles tomorrow? I'm assuming you're talking about her. Great. Yeah. So basically, what I guess what I'm saying is the conspiracy. Look, she's stretching. She's stretching. That should get me 10 new subscribers. 10 new subscribers for stretching. For stretching. It's amazing. This could be the thing. Um, but yeah, look, I do think like you see it all the time with Magro at the moment. Like they're all basically doing the same thing. And it's incredible because they see the writing on the wall, right? You can't like Ben Shapiro, who I don't like Ben Shapiro. Oh, Moody, thanks, Tamara. Thank you. I don't like Ben Shapiro. I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro, but he's a little bit less crazy than the Candace Owens type people. You know what I mean? He's a little bit more normal. But like but this is the thing, right? But even Ben Shapiro is retweeting or reposting Nick Shirley, who is posting stuff about conspiracies. Now, Ben Shapiro isn't reposting stuff about the Tim Waltz thing, so he's not doing that, right? Yeah, Ben Shapiro has the whiniest voice in the world. Yeah, yeah. And the thing about Ben Shapiro and people like Tucker Carlson, the thing that I've always found hilarious about them is they always talk about men not being masculine enough these days. Like Ben Shapiro will often say, men are not masculine enough. And Tucker Carlson will often say, men are not masculine enough. With that, she'll just put her, and she will say, and she will say that, and they will say that all day long, right? They're not masculine. Now, I'm not claiming to be the most masculine man on the planet, although I have done fishing a couple of times. I've been fishing, I've been camping, right? I've been camping 3 or 4 times in my life, and so I've cooked. Yeah, he's also very skilled at debating and talking people down, but he's wrong. Yeah, exactly, tomorrow. But I wouldn't call Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson the most masculine people on the planet, right? Ben Shapiro, and there's nothing wrong with this. Ben Shapiro, like, plays the clarinet, plays the piano, loves classical music, loves going to the plays, and then we'll go on TV and talk about how men are not men like they used to be. Tucker Carlson used to wear a little bow tie everywhere. He used to go around his bow tie. He's got floppy hair, bow tie, grew up, he's like a preppy 80s guy from the 80s, grew up in a rich family. Also talks a lot about how men are not manly enough. You know what I mean? I'm not sure these are the two people who should be representing that there's not enough manly men around at the moment. I'm just saying, like I wouldn't do it, right? And I don't think they should be doing it either. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And I think I've been fishing more times than that. And I live in Australia with a lot of deadly creatures, right? I have spiders this big in my home, like this big in my home. I put them in my hand because they're not deadly. They don't bite. They're not deadly. And I take them out. I can't see Ben Shapiro or that doing that. I can't see them grabbing a spider that big in their hand and taking them outside, right? They wouldn't do it, right? So again, they don't really believe what they're spewing. It's a revenue stream. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. And again, yeah, exactly. They do daddy issues. Yeah. So again, the simplest solution to treat them like the toddlers having a fit, stop rewarding them. Yeah, I do that too. Maybe they all have Trump penises. Yeah, maybe they have Trump. Yeah, Richard. Richard, part of the problem is in the US is we generally have not invested in modernizing state computer and accounting systems, so we easily track where money goes. It creates a lot of problems. The IRS uses computers. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's true. T, men who talk about masculinity are very suspect as far as possible. Being gay themselves, I've seen it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think I've told this story once before. When I was in high school, there was a guy that I used to know. Like, he wasn't a close friend, but he was in my sort of friendship group. And he used to always make jokes about gay people. Like, all the time, he would make jokes about gay people. And it was constant. You'd be talking about a car or fixing a car or whatever, and then he would just make a gay joke. It was constantly always being derogatory gay jokes. And we always thought it was weird, right? I'm out. Have a good evening. Thanks, Hassan. Thanks for that. And he was always doing that. And then basically, years later, I didn't see him after high school. I was like 23, 24, right? And I was walking down Oxford Street, Sydney, which is like the gay capital of Sydney, like an area. Um, and I saw him. I hadn't seen him for years, and he was walking down the street holding another man's hand, his boyfriend. And he went, Joe, Joe. And I turned around. I hadn't seen him for years. He looked completely different, right? I saw him completely different. I was like, oh, Brian. And then I looked down, and I see he was like holding a dude's hand, and I was like, Brian? Like, yeah. And then he sounded completely different. He sounded more camp. He sounded more confident in a lot of ways. He sounded like a really nice guy. He sounded like everything. And I walked away. He never mentioned, right? He was gay. Yeah, yeah. So I think there's a lot of truth to the people who, and I think what he was doing, because I never saw him again after that. But in my opinion, back when I was going to school, like in the 90s, in the late 80s and 90s, it wasn't a good idea to be openly gay. So obviously what he was doing was that he was scared to be openly gay because, he might have thought he would have caught abuse for it, which he probably would have. So he overcompensated for it by making gay jokes and stuff like that to try to, get people not to get on the trail that he was gay. But he did it so much that I think a lot of people were like, you know, tone it down. Like, even the homophobes in the 80s and 90s were like, that's a bit too much. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So don't overdo it if you're going to do that, because it just puts more attention on you. But yeah, so again, I think a lot of this stuff that we see these days, um, with like the whole masculine thing. It's good, there's nothing wrong with masculinity. There's nothing wrong with a guy going to the gym. There's nothing wrong with a guy doing exercise. Yeah, good for him. I'm glad he's living his. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, and the thing is he seemed so much better when I saw him when he was openly gay than he was at high school. There was always something weird about him because he was trying to hide who he was, right? When I saw him on the street, he was being himself and he was so open and friendly. And I was like, I would love to go for a drink with this guy. The guy in high school, I kind of found like a bit annoying because he was like constantly making these jokes. So being himself was so much more like interesting. I was like, I'd love to go for a drink with this guy. Um, so yeah, so but anyway, I guess what I'm saying is that a lot of masculinity thing, you see on the right, it's fake masculinity. It's not real masculinity, right? And they want to go back to a time where I feel that they had more control, right, over women, that they had more control over their lives, right? Because one of the best explanations is line from Victoria. If you didn't want someone to think you were gay, you became the roughest, toughest son of a bitch football player. Exactly, Amy. That's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And um, yeah. And look, these days, overcompensating for his hidden secret. Exactly, James. Overcompensating. Yeah. These days, um, in Australia, it wouldn't be a problem to be openly gay in a school. This is back in the 80s and 90s, and I think everywhere back then was, it's not like you would necessarily get bashed, but you would or beaten up. It's just that your life would become you would be bullied. So your life would be very different. That's what I'm talking about. It's sad that they can't just be themselves. Exactly. Yeah. Now, Mike Johnson is on Grinder. Yeah. Um, but my son, when he was at school, there was a lot of openly gay people in there, and nobody cared about it. They did get some abuse, but generally, what their abuse was online, not in school. So it was on Instagram from. So so what would happen is a friend of mine's, my son's friend who was gay, who was openly gay in high school. Um, the people who didn't like him because he was gay, they would never say anything to him in school because they would get in big trouble. They'd probably get suspended. So what they do is they'd go on his Instagram when he was at home, right? And then they would they would bully him online. And then when they saw him at school, they wouldn't say anything. It was a very weird thing because growing up, there was no Instagram. So the idea that someone would bully you online, but then when they saw you in real life, they would be like nothing happened, just seems really bizarre to me. Like, you know what I mean? At least have the balls to bully someone face to face. You know what I mean? Like the fact that they would do it just online, always made me like, yeah, at least the bullies when I was growing up with, they couldn't hide behind a screen. You know what I mean? I just feel our bullies were better. I'm going to say, I think our bullies were better. John Walton to the Waltons, a role model for men. No, they're cowards. Yeah, they are cowards. Bullies are all cowards. Yeah, yeah. I've never understood bullies, and I've never understood bully. I'm 76, so I had a cousin that was gay. I loved Harvey. My wife loved him. He was one of the most fun people to spend time with. Yeah, exactly, James. Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I was in school in the 70s, and I lost a couple gay friends who hid in the later died of AIDS because it was necessary to hide and not talk about. Oh, Tamara. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's awful. That's awful. Um, I got to say, my only experience with AIDS was probably I'd say it was after the 80s. I was a bit young in the 80s, but it was in the early 90s, and I was still very young. And I was working in I was still at school, and I was in high school, and I was just about to finish school in the early 90s, and basically, I had a part-time job in a retail shop selling clothes, and one of the guys that worked there, um, um, was gay, and he just found out he had AIDS, and it was a time when they had the new drugs. So he told me that he was gonna be put onto these new drugs and that he might be okay. So so and he's still alive to this day. So he was one of the first people in Australia to get the new drugs for AIDS, and he's still alive today. So it's a great story because the people had he got it only a few years earlier, it would have been a death sentence for him. And I have to say, my son is gay, one of the neatest and most loving, intelligent, pathetic person I know. I'm super proud to be his mum. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Great news, Joe. Thank you, Joe. That's awesome. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So it just goes to show. And the thing is that even in the early 90s, and it's not like that now, when I was working in retail and we were in the lunchroom one day and he was telling everyone in the lunchroom that he had AIDS, there were a lot of people in that lunchroom who were like, I'm not going after when he left the lunchroom and we were all in there, he said, I'm not going to touch that cutlery because he ate using that cutlery. So I never forgot that they were worried about that. I think a lot of that was out of ignorance that they thought they could get it. Unfortunately, there was always bullies, true adult. Yeah. I bet they were scared. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah. So yeah, it's a lot of the. I bet they were scared. Yeah, it was scary back in the day. Yeah, it was scary back in the day. To imagine being in that period, um, being sexually active, and then having that as like a death sentence, around you. Well, she's moving. She's moving. Is it her? Oh my god, she moved from one side of the couch to the other. Yeah, that's incredible. That is incredible. Um, so yeah, but yeah, so much misinformation. Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, Nibbles moves. Yes, she did move, Kimmy. This is big news. This is breaking news, and you only hear it here first. She moved. She was over there near the grey, grey pillar, and now she's over here and moves closer towards me, and she moved closer towards me because she loves me. She wanted to be closer to me. Okay. She didn't love me as much when she was over there, but now she loves me a little bit more there. She's so sweet. She's too sweet. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. As I said, she has tried to bite some kids' fingers, but nobody's perfect. And and in her favor, they did come in a bit. You know how kids come in a bit aggressive when they try to rub, like that? Yeah. So misunderstood. Misunderstood. I'm just going to say she misses you. Yeah. Thanks, Car. Yeah. 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 I'll probably take her for a walk soon. She didn't really move. It's a conspiracy. Right. Yeah, true. Tamara, that could be the conspiracy that actually it was the it was actually not her moving. It was actually the Israeli government who actually moved her. Someone from Israel moved her. It was very scary, crazy. We didn't know there was no cure and misinformation. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It would have been a strange time. I was very young at the time. We had these we had these ads in Australia, which were at the time very controversial ads around the world. And the ad, I don't know if you saw these ads in America or not. The ad in Australia was about AIDS, and it had a picture. Um, how many hits would it get? I would say millions, millions probably. Um, it it oh, it had a picture. So the ad was the Grim Reaper, the Grim Reaper, and he was at a bowling alley, and he had a bowling ball, right? And he he would bowl. The Grim Reaper was bowling this bowling ball down the alley, and it was all the pins that it was hitting was all the people that was killing from AIDS. And it was a really, really dark ad, right? And it got a lot of praise and it also got a lot of controversy because how dark it was. Because they and to be honest with you, I think it was a really good ad because it needed something really shocking for people to realize how serious it was. I was in HS. It was something I constantly worried about it. It was awful, and I watched the movie Kids. Oh, I'd watched the movie Kids as well. Me, oh my god, I remember watching the movie Kids. I think it's the one that I'm talking about. Is about young skateboarders. Is that what you're talking about? Me, the young skateboarders and one of them gets AIDS. It was in 1990s because I was actually a skateboarder as well back in the early 90s. I was a big skateboarder, and I think the movie was about skateboarders, about young guys going around sleeping around, gets AIDS, stuff like that. Yeah, 100%. I love that movie. Um, and that was kind of my group. I was in that skating type of group in Australia with AIDS, and they were all passing around. That's right. They were really irresponsible skate group guys sleeping around. Yeah, exactly. Our gay friends told us how scary it was. Yeah, yeah. It's pretty. AIDS was very scary. It was a very different time and stuff like that. I mean, I would still be very careful about getting something like that because you don't want to end up on all those drugs if you don't have to. Even though it's not a death sentence anymore, it can still have impact your life in a big way. I mean, the biggest thing that's ever happened to me um, is when I found out I was a celiac. I was diagnosed as celiac, which means I can't eat gluten. So it's not the most serious thing in the world, but even that, right, to me was a really big thing because I suddenly had to every restaurant I go to, I have to have a conversation with the staff going, is there any gluten in there? Is it cross contamination? Is this, do I have to, can I eat this? Can I? And so your whole life becomes part of that. Reagan helped spread the misinformation about AIDS. Yeah, exactly. And Fauci, I believe, was very good with the whole AIDS thing as well. From what I heard, Fauci was very good. I don't know enough about it. Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was a tough time. It was a very tough time. I'm glad I wasn't, you know, sexually active around that age group because I was too young, so it didn't really impact me in that way. But yeah, it was a big thing in Australia as well. Sydney, where I'm from, has a very big gay community. Outside of San Francisco, I think it has the biggest gay community. It has the gay Mardi Gras every year, which is big, things like that. So, yes, let's not forget his contributions. It was very scary in the 80s when they didn't even know the cause. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, imagine being in the 80s. and you wake up and you got these sort of marks on your body and you're not feeling well, it would have been just a awful, awful thing to experience. Or to find out that someone you're sleeping with got AIDS and then you're thinking, have I got it? It really would have just been an awful time. And then on top of that, all the stigma, all the religious people who were making it out like, oh, it's because of God that God created this to because it's a sin to be gay. Like that was also awful as well. Blue skin Bob, yeah, Sydney is a great city. Yeah, Sydney is a great city. Very expensive these days to live Sydney, but fee cells. I don't know what that means. Fee cells. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Fee dust cells. That's right. That's right, Bob. See you again. Bye. Yeah, thank you. Anyway, guys, I have to go as well. I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming today. I've had a really good Substack live. I hope you really enjoyed it today. I'll think about a conspiracy theory next time. See if we can get the conspiracy theory working. See how that goes. Maybe something about Trump might be interesting. See you again. They tried to make people believe you could get AIDS by just being in the same room with them. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly. They did. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Dave from California. Thank you so much. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Sandra. Thank you so much. I really appreciate everyone. Thanks so much. Thanks, Car. Thanks, Amy. Thanks, Joyce. Thanks, Tamara. Thank you so much, Donna. Thank you all. I'll do another one shortly and we'll get to join. Sorry, Rick, you just joined and I'm leaving. Rick, next time. Sorry, Rick. Thanks, T. Thank you so much. See you guys. Thank you. And by the way, thanks, Nicole. Thank you so much for the love hearts. I love the love hearts. If you want to do me a favor, I'll upload the video. And when I upload the video, thank you, Amy. If you could like it and restack it and just share it, that helps me a lot as well. It helps me not want to do conspiracy theories. Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. And also a big goodbye from Nibbles. Now, it doesn't look like she's saying goodbye, but that's just the way she says goodbye. Okay. So she's very, very much loved being part of this. See you guys. Thank you.